I have so many friends, family members that on a regular basis will want the outcome of boys like my sons or sons like yours, successful children. They don't want to put in the work. They don't want to do the very things that we did. They want to make all the excuses in the world why that result is going to happen, even without the work. Life doesn't work that way. When I talk about parenting and I talk about raising strong, capable sons, and it probably applies to daughters too, there's a lot of things that come to mind that I think are worth sharing. One of the most important things is the overreaching benefit of discipline. I can't tell you how often today we see so many people struggling just in a normal environment with children not having any regard for discipline. And that means it starts with the parents. And parents, we have to have boundaries. We have to have rules. We have to have consequences, accountability. These are things that are received later in life. It's mandatory for raising successful children into successful adults that aren't enabled babies when they get older, right? So it's really interesting because there's some things that really stand out. The most important thing is the discipline in each category. Then there's the framework of actually using my life model in the way that I've used it throughout my life as a father. Now, a lot of this comes from the conversations that I have on the sideline. I was actually talking to a father of one of my son's soccer teams, and we were talking about the fact that our boys have been so disciplined in always getting up on time, always being aware of what they had to complete, doing their work when they're not actually in a school that's normal, where they go to class and do the normal everyday thing. These kids are in an academy and they're doing things in a different way. And so it requires a significant amount of discipline. And I asked the father, I said, I have a question for you. What would you say if I told you that the thing that I thought was the most important was the very things we established as young children? So I'd like to talk about the morning routine. I'd like to talk a minute about the fact that so many parents struggle. So if you're an older parent and your kids are out of the house and you're listening to this, then you can relate, because this happened at some point in time and you either changed it or you lived it forever. And you're laughing when I say this. If you're a newer parent and you're struggling every single morning, then you understand that this is the very, death of your day. Everything is ruined when the kids are crazy and chaotic in the morning. And if you're a grandparent, you're probably telling your children on a regular basis, if you just listen to me, if you just would take my advice. I know there are new ways to parent. I know there are things that you've learned, and I know you want to be better than us. But at the end of the day, there are some things that are mandatory, and discipline is one of them. And so this father and I are having this conversation on the sidelines. And what's really interesting is I said, I go back and I think to the first year that my youngest son was probably 2 to 3 years old, and my oldest son was probably in first grade. So 3 and 6, let's call it that. And our mornings were a little bit chaotic. Mom's a school teacher, so she's gone early in the morning, and dad has to handle it. And dad has to make sure that we get ready for school, that we have breakfast, that we get to the school bus. And the bus for my kids was Catholic school, so I had to drive them to the school bus, which means we had to be out of the house at a certain time, and it was a little bit of an ordeal. My youngest son loved to change his outfit all the time. So the year before, towards the end of the year, it was becoming a little bit more chaotic. The more personality he got, the more challenging it became. So to start the new school year, I'm telling this father on the sideline this in a shorter version. I'm giving you the longer version. But in the shorter version, I'm telling this father, I said, one of the things that I really go back to, the discipline they have today versus the discipline that we created, was around 3 and 6. I made it so that I set a standard of what we would and wouldn't do every day. Number one is I made the boys get up to an alarm. I set both of the alarms in their room, and they had to get up to the alarm. Now, this was not popular. My wife told me it wouldn't work, and it did. And I will say the first thing was the alarm. The second thing that they had to do was every single day they had to get up to the alarm, and then they had to get ready. Getting ready included getting dressed. Now, for my youngest son, we had to lay out his outfit the night before, and he was not allowed to change it once he chose. We could change it multiple times the night before, but we could not change it. Once he went to bed, it had to be that outfit the next morning. There were no changes. So we created that boundary. My oldest son was always a dream at this. He was pretty easy. It was significantly simple with him. But they also then had to immediately get up, brush their teeth, brush their hair, get dressed. So we have to look good, feel good, play good. These are the things that we say all the time. Every time they went to a soccer game, they were not allowed to walk out of the house with hair that was crazy, with their shirts all untucked and crazy. We had to look good, feel good, play good. That's how we start our day. So my boys had to be completely ready at 3 and 6 before they could touch an iPad, before we could watch the TV, before they had breakfast. And the only thing they had to do every day was put on their shoes. Now, I will tell you, there are days where they didn't eat breakfast because they didn't do what they were supposed to do. It was very rare, but I don't care, because at the end of the day, they had a job to do and they did not do it by a certain time. And it was a very seldom thing that happened because they didn't like the result. Now, we'd make sure that they had a snack, or we'd make sure that they were good to go. We didn't deprive them, but at the end of the day, I had a purpose behind what I was trying to accomplish. And the boys thrived in that level of discipline. They were highly successful. They were excited when they came down. They were complete. They were done. They felt good about themselves. They were actually happy with the purpose they were creating every day. What they didn't realize is the value that was creating for the future of their lives. Getting comfortable with discipline at a young age allows them to be comfortable with discipline when they have to wake up and go to school as a teenager, when they have to get up on their own in college, when they have to actually go to work in the morning and the boss says, this is the time you have to be here. And he doesn't mean 8:35, he means 8:30. Life doesn't just choose to give you freedom that parents tend to give their kids. And at the end of the day, I told this father this story, and he looks at me and he's like, I did the exact same thing. My wife was gone in the morning, and I actually gave them the same exact layout. They had to wake up, they had to do these things, and they weren't allowed to do any of these other things. And the funny thing is, we had great mornings. We did not have chaos. We did not have arguments. They didn't fight. We were actually enjoying the time. By the time they came down, they ate breakfast, we got out of the house, and it was peaceful, and it made my day better. I can quite frankly remember being a kid, and I apologize to you, Mom, because I did not grow up in a super perfect environment. My dad went to work early, and if my dad wasn't there, it was a bit chaotic. And my mom liked to give us freedom. My mom made us crepes and eggs every morning. She was absolutely amazing. And the way that she did it was allowing us to have ultimate freedom. And that ultimate freedom a lot of times led to arguments on the way to school, us being a little bit disheveled, not looking and feeling our best. Part of the reason that I was very adamant on look good, feel good, play good is because I didn't want to repeat some of the very things that I did to my mom by not being a great listener, by not being disciplined, by not having my father say, these are the things that we need to do. And this is why being a parent is so important, to be a team. And it's very difficult to do this alone. I understand if you're doing it alone, I feel for you, but there still has to be accountability, parameters, and purpose. So I tell this story because it sets up everything else. When you think about raising strong, capable sons or even children, and you use the framework of life, love, impact, faith, and energy, I think that it's really important, because when I talk about discipline, I'm not talking about being a authoritarian or beating children or going back in time to treat kids the way that they used to be treated when the 1940s and 50s were the kids were supposed to be seen and not heard. I think I heard that growing up, but it wasn't as enforced, right? And today, kids are to be heard, seen, and do whatever they want. Just go go in public, watch kids completely control their parents. It's embarrassing. If these are your kids, I got to be honest, it's embarrassing to watch the level of control the kids have over you. And all we know is that that's not going to reciprocate later in life. Here's what I do know. There are a couple of categories, and I use this high performance life model for everything that I do, and I think it can help parents. I also want to say this, really, really important, very, very important. I am an absolutely imperfect father. I am absolutely imperfect dad. I'm an imperfect partner. I do not have it all figured out. These are some of the things that I figured out through failure. And if I didn't have chaos in the morning, and I didn't go through all these outfit changes, and I didn't have all these things that were crazy, and I wouldn't have learned to be able to share these things. So I'm humbly telling you these things as someone that knows only from experience and failure. And I'm still growing and learning. There are still things I will grow and learn. I have two boys that are successful in their own right. My oldest is in college and he is playing Division I soccer, and my youngest is in a soccer academy playing at a high level and extremely disciplined. He gets up every day to an alarm, writes in a journal, does his exercise and stretching and workouts and all these things as a part of his day before he even leaves the house. And I got to be honest with you, I don't do anything at all, just like that other father on the sideline and I were talking. And I think there's 4 things that are really important. And it has to do with life. Love. Loving your children and understanding what's important to them, loving them as they are, where they are, is so important. Love is the most important recipe for raising children. Without love, and love without expectations, love without standards, you have to love your children. Even if they're a major pain in the ass, we love them. But here's the thing, we have to love them as they are, which means we have to love them differently. If you try to love your children all the same, it is not successful. It will not be successful. My 2 sons are completely different. The interesting thing is, as they got older, they were even more different. And I find it so astonishing that if I were to treat them exactly the same, I got really, really bad results. My youngest son, when he was younger and he was changing outfits and doing all those crazy things, I think back, he was a little bit more creative and a little bit more free. And and I let a lot of things go because I already learned from my firstborn son, who I had to learn on. We apologize to all of our firstborn children, by the way, because we do the best that we can. I too am a firstborn and I'm grateful for it. But being a firstborn means that you fail a lot more and you try to get better. But I treated them differently. They needed different rewards. My oldest son is very results oriented. My youngest son has results orientation, but he also is more of a servant leader. He was interested in doing some things that were pleasing to everybody. He liked to be home more. My oldest son liked adventure more. He liked to be involved in lots of things. He liked to have friends around. He was a little bit more social. These were all good traits. No matter where they fell, they made them different. So as a father, just like a leader in a company or anything we do, I had to raise them a little differently. And they will point it out and they will tell you it's unfair. And I don't care because they're wrong. One day they will be fathers. One day they will actually understand that you did the best job that you could, and they are different. So raising them different actually has different results if you do the right thing. Loving them where they are, loving them differently is okay, but setting a standard that everybody has to apply to regardless of their personalities. Maybe we explain something a little bit differently from one kid to the other. Maybe we're more authoritarian with one and a little slower to explain to the other. Maybe there's just a different way that we deliver the information, but we set a standard and a value and an objective that we all work towards as a team. We are a team. And I think that's really, really important. The next thing is impact. Now, how do kids have impact? Impact is extremely important. The discipline of looking for ways to add value to other people. This is super simple. This is when they're in school. Do they help kids or do they do the opposite? Are they the kind of person that's holding doors for teachers? Are they the kind of child that is open and listening to help others all the time? We were raising our boys to make sure that they were aware of their environment to help others. You know, as they get older, I see this more and more. The simple text that my youngest son sends a friend of ours or a cousin as they embark upon college that just says he's thinking of them and he's rooting for them. The high school senior who's struggling that my son has the foresight to go and actually talk to guidance about because of some of the things that he said. I'm so proud of their impact and their ability to think bigger than themselves and beyond just what they're trying to accomplish. On the soccer field, not just winning, but being a great teammate, being the kind of kid that other kids want to be around, having lots of friends. Impact is really important. Faith. Faith is something that is strategically important. To me, raising my boys to put God first above all else has been mandatory. When I actually teach the boys that there is something bigger than them and us, and we are all imperfect, and God can help them and teach them the things that they need. They both went to Catholic school. It was one of the absolute most important things to me because I look back on my life and I didn't realize it at the time, but I was so grateful for my parents for having raised me in a faithful environment, knowing that some things are just out of my control and there's somebody else bigger than me that's out there that I can pray to, that I can be a part of. Just having the ego not be the most important thing. You are not the most important person. You are not the main character in the story. And if the kids think that, then the whole world revolves around them, and that is not successful. I also know that as they get older, there's going to be moments where I can't give them advice. And it happens a lot as teenagers and even more as they become adults. The reality is I need them to lean on someone other than a parent. And God is a much better resource than I can ever be. Faith is mandatory. And I think it's really, really important to impact and to love because we believe God is love. And if we're going to love others, we want to really love them with kindness, treat them great, and that helps impact. The last thing is energy, how we show up to the world. So we have who, our love, we have what, our impact, we have why, something bigger than ourselves, God, and we have our energy, how we show up to the world. Healthy mind, healthy body, healthy spirit. This is where we teach our kids healthy eating habits. My children ate their dinner. They sat at the table and they ate what we ate. We didn't make multiple dinners. We didn't create a separate environment for them. We did what we needed to do to make sure that they knew that we were all in this together. Mom and dad put all the efforts, and let's be honest, dad didn't put a whole lot of effort into doing anything with the meals 99% of the time. My wife is amazing. She cooks great meals, and the boys eat anything. And I know everybody's different. I'm not judging anyone that can't do this. I'm just saying that these were standards we set, and they seem to work. Healthy eating is important. Today, my boys get protein first thing in the morning. They focus on hydration. They understand that obesity is not something we're okay with. That being healthy, working out, working hard for our goals, not being lazy, not sitting around the house all the time, having a healthy mind, purpose, having a healthy body. We appreciate the way that we look. We want to look our best and we want to feel our best. And we know that if we're doing that, we're setting a foundation to actually be able to give more to the world. I also have raised them to understand that a healthy mind means that chaos is going to come into the brain. Anxiety is going to come into the brain. There are two things that we can do. We can be aware of it. I've taught them how to meditate. And we've also taught them that God is the resource for that. So we go right back to that faith, a healthy mind, a healthy body, healthy spirit. When you talk about resources for discipline, these things all are disciplines. They are the discipline to do hard things so that they actually become an easier way of life. Living life the hard way is actually living it in a much happier way. Living life the easy way is always a route to be unsuccessful, non-purposeful, and to be disappointed with the result. So by setting accountability boundaries, by having the rules and actually laying out, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes saying no is hard. But we created disciplines that now we see them executing. And it's crazy how valuable it is. I'm so proud of my sons and who they are becoming. And guess what, folks? They're still becoming men. They are, even the man of the two of them is still becoming a man and growing into himself. And I'm very grateful that we've been able to provide those boundaries. And they will say that we were too hard. They will say that there were things they will do differently. And guess what? Great. I want them to be better than me. I want them to be better than their mom. I want them to be better parents. I want them to love their kids in a different way if it means they get better at it. I want them to do the very things that I wasn't as good at. But I also laid a foundation the best way that I can. And I fail still to this day, all the time. And, I have so many friends, family members that on a regular basis will want the outcome of boys like my sons or sons like yours, successful children. They don't want to put in the work. They don't want to do the very things that we did. They want to make all the excuses in the world why that result is going to happen, even without the work. Life doesn't work that way. So healthy mind, healthy body, healthy spirit. Why? Bigger than themselves. Throw the ego away. Put God first. Having an impact beyond yourself and loving them where they are, no matter where they are, no matter how challenging it is. Unconditional love matters. That's fatherhood. That's motherhood. So when I think back to the sideline conversation and I look back at how valuable discipline has been, all I can say is I have a lot more to learn. I also have a lot more to teach because there's so many great ideas to share. And I'm so proud of those results. The reality is you too can have those results if it's something that you're interested in. So I'd love to get feedback. I'd love to hear how you think. And this is just a couple of ideas and a couple stories from raising sons. And there's a lot of challenging moments in that, a lot of times where they think you're the dumbest guy in the room. And I think I'm in that mode now. So, but I'm pretty proud of that. And I'm proud of their discipline.